Let's talk about the election official who was ousted for the error that purged 120,000. Hang on a second. Yeah, I just had to do this. Election official who was ousted for the error that purged Brooklyn voters. This is from the New York Daily News. So there was over 100. Everybody knows at this point there was over 100,000 people who were purged from Brooklyn voter rolls. Diane Haslett-Rudiano, the board of elections chief clerk, was suspended without pay on Thursday, 2 days after the city's botched presidential primary prompted criticism from both the winners and losers on the Democratic side. She was suspended without pay, effective immediately, pending an internal investigation into the administration of the voter rolls in the borough of Brooklyn. So everybody knows this was. It's not a revelation that something was wrong because it was obvious. But the question is, how much did Diane actually hold responsibility for it, and who else? Or is Diane simply the fall girl, fall guy, fall woman? Call her, because this type of error, this type of error doesn't happen with one person. No one person can be responsible for stopping an error this big. There has to be more people involved in this.
The people have been pointing out to us all day long that from the attorney general being on Hillary Clinton's New York leadership team or whatever it is, to the I think it's the comptroller, I can't remember his exact title, for the city of New York. He was actually just nominated a Hillary delegate, right? Because they're auditing the entire city of New York Board of Education. But this Brooklyn dump, because it's peculiar that it was just Brooklyn, right? One. And then two, there are so many egregious errors in the way that this all, it's just too coincidental that it's just some random, happenstance occurrence. Not putting on tinfoil hat or anything, but seriously, I mean, to just sit around we've seen the last several days, Democrats, party loyalists, journalists, etc., trying to make this argument that, well, the independents should have known better, blah, blah, blah. We're not even having that discussion. There were actual people who either complied with the actual deadline. They were either applied with the actual deadline, or they have been long participating Democrats in the system. When we're talking about we're talking about the Purge voters anyway, right? And I was telling you guys the other day, my grandmother, who's been passed away, she was in Queens though, but my grandmother who's been passed away for 3 years, it's recorded. She was still on the road. My uncle, who took care of my grandmother when she's passed away, goes to vote, and he has the shock of his life seeing his mother's signature above his, in the book. So this. To not take off people who are actually recorded and reported as having passed away, and to take off people who were just something like Michael Salomon, right? He told us a story. They're outside the city, but he told us the story of his mother, and her signature was on a fraudulent registration. Someone basically cut and pasted, lifted her signature, Photoshop or whatever was done. These are deliberate actions that happen. No tinfoil hat. We have actual document reports from people of things that have happened. Yeah. And there's something that's going on. We've heard similar stories coming out of Arizona as well, right? So there's something that is going on one way or another.
It happens too frequently. It happens so much that you can't. It doesn't even require a tinfoil hat anymore at this point. Let me read this right here as they try to explain. This is the explanation that the New York Daily News gathered. The problem began as she was trying to clean up the voting books, which must be periodically purged to eliminate people who die, move, or are ineligible for other reasons. Sources said that she skipped one of the steps and was built in to stop the system from purging eligible voters, which caused a chain reaction that led to people being improperly removed. Brooklyn lost 102,717, or 8% of its active voters. Listen, that is the most vague and ambiguous explanation of an error that took out 102,000 people. You got to come better than that. That's, unfortunately, that's going to be an explanation that is satisfactory to too many people. And the fact that one person got fired, for a lot of people, this is the end of the story. And for me, it should only be the beginning, because the explanation is so empty and so shallow, and so many people suffered disenfranchisement that it can't be. But let me tell you, I made a mistake at work yesterday that you know, one person can cause a pretty big problem, now that I think about it. So let me shut my mouth. Let me shut my mouth. I don't know.
But it's the same thing we see.
My problem didn't hit 102,000 people, but it did take an entire corporation's email offline. So yeah, maybe I should be nice to this lady. Go ahead, Noah.
But no, but it's what we see when these things happen, right? Like, even when we look like when we go back to, like, going back to Chicago again with the Laquan McDonald case, we initially see the only person that's really actually punished and all that was the chief of police, right? He's the sacrificial lamb for the greater good of whatever they think they're going to salvage, and that's what happens. Somebody gets put out there, you know, as a sacrificial lamb. Like, somebody has to go because we need to appease these people. But here's the thing: we're not going to be satisfied, because for the reports to come out, right? Like you know, I think it was like at first, because it was like 60,000 at first, and then it doubled overnight. Like things like that. Like, it's so egregious. And then when you add the voter purge on top of the broken machines, the polls not opening till later, people not being even aware that they could go. With the fact that these people didn't have to go and stand before a judge and spend hours out of their day trying to get a court order to be able to vote properly, or the fact that people had to give affidavit ballots, right? Like, it's just insane what ended up happening because somebody made a mistake. So I appreciate that, because I make mistakes at work too, although I don't affect as many people in my job. Yeah. But still, like, mistakes do happen. But at the same time, there comes to a point where it's when is a mistake just a mistake, and when is it not?
Because the person in Brooklyn who made this mistake should never have had this kind of authority to make that mistake in isolation. Like, it's like, think about a cross check on an airplane. You know, you're not going to have one person check one door. You have a cross check. If you're going to have a cross check on a plane with 200, 300 people, you damn well better have a cross check on the ground with 100,000 people, political future in your hands.